Hello, how interesting. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here a little early today. Every now and then, the show takes a different, Looking here on YouTube as we launch the show, it looks like YouTube took advertising revenue away from yesterday's program. Yesterday's program, of course, was titled The Warmth of Collectivism Felt as Venezuela's narco-terrorist-in-chief Maduro is captured in U.S. raid. YouTube did not want us to earn a living covering the news yesterday that Maduro has been brought to justice. We know that YouTube are not honest business partners. We still strive to grow our shows and our content despite their best efforts to make it impossible to earn a living covering the news. We often muse about the time we covered the Ariana Grande shooting. There was a concert over in Europe somewhere, maybe Germany, maybe I forget where. We covered the show. We went live, or we covered the attack. We went live, gave you the updates and a little bit of a reminder of when you go out to public events, you should make sure that you and your family, you and your friends, have a meeting point and a secondary meeting point, and you double check where you're parked. And if you get lost, so that this is the exit, this is the closest exit, we'll go out this way if we have to. You have a plan. I interviewed the lead singer of Eagles of Death Metal, Jesse. Let me see. Eagles of Death Metal singer. About the Bataclan shooting. And we talked about that. It was pretty brutal. Jesse Everett Hughes. We just covered, all right, look, if you're at an Ariana Grande event or if you're at some other event and something happens, have a plan. Be prepared, just like the Boy Scouts taught us. That video was taken down and they said it was, we couldn't monetize it. Something about the subject matter was unsuitable for advertisers. Every suggested video on the side was the same exact story, except it was coming from authoritative sources, whatever those are. And so they said, it's okay. Oh, it's okay if ABC or CBS or NBC, it's fine if they cover the news and they can monetize their content, but you can't. And that stuff is still going on. All we did yesterday was discuss what happened with Venezuela, with the operation that took out Nicolas Maduro. To bring him to justice in the American court that had a warrant issued for him. I believe I'm using the terminology accurately. Was it a warrant issued, an indictment in the criminal courts 5 years ago under Biden, I believe. 5 years ago, I believe it was under Biden, 2020, I think. Point being, there's nothing in that video that should not be monetized, except that they don't like our perspective on it. So that is why I'm going to put this link at the bottom. If you value independent journalism, please consider signing up on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who has. It's a new month. We were able to initiate another payout to fund a portion of our operating expenses. Every month we have supporters. There's free Patreon accounts and then there's paid Patreon accounts. Both are valuable. At least go over to our Patreon link, The New American Media. And that's pinned at the top of our X profile at American_media_. But our Patreon is right there. The paid version, it's like $10 a month or 100 or 1,000, whatever you can come up with. It's all appreciated. your direct support of this show is really what we have going. We rely on you. We appreciate you. We need you. So please consider signing up on Patreon. You can also subscribe on Rumble and YouTube. It's like a monthly, like $5 a month. That is fantastic. Those are building blocks that can anchor the foundation because you know what's coming in each month, as well as Rumble rants and super chats to throw tips at us. But we also have at the bottom Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. If you want to send a donation to the newsroom, toss a tip into the tip jar. That comes to us directly, and it's super appreciated. So it's just a strange way to start the show, because you click on the fact that you did a show yesterday, and there's no reason why monetization should be limited, and it's limited. This video may earn limited or no ad revenue due to content identified as not suitable for most advertisers. That's nonsense. But it's what they do to starve us of revenue so that we stop creating content. So consider signing up and supporting us. Let's launch today's program. Broadcasting to you live from the Orion Spiral Arm of the Milky Way Galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, somewhere outside of Myles Garrett's single-season sack record of Cincinnati, Ohio. My name is BrianEngelman. Today is Monday, January 5th, 2025, and this right here is the TNAM Daily Show. TNAM stands for the New American Media. On today's show, of course, we're going to talk about the Don-Roe Doctrine. Yes, that's like the Monroe Doctrine, where we control the hemisphere. You know, you don't think Russia and China were cozying up to Venezuela because they want a recipe, do you? No. See, but under Biden, who was bought and paid for, who was a Chinese op, a Chinese, how do you even want to say it? On the take, an asset? Well, Venezuela's a different situation today. And it does not appear to be something that's going to be 15 years of blood and treasure. It seems like it was a very precisely executed operation with minimal excess. And at least in the early going, a minimal likelihood of long-term destabilization. You know, the things that have followed the power vacuum when such regime change happened in Iraq, when things similar happened in Afghanistan. Go down the laundry list. But also, what type of warning message was this to China about Taiwan? You better not. What type of warning message was this to Iran about executing their citizens who are saying, we want to go back to the 70s where we didn't have an Islamic supremacist overlord brutally badgering the citizens of Iran? What type of message is sent there? What type of message is sent to Russia and Zelensky, Putin, and Ukraine? The Don-Roe Doctrine. What about Mexico? What about Colombia? They've sort of been put on notice, haven't they? So we're going to unpack a lot of different perspectives on this, like we try to do. A reshare is not an endorsement or a denigration. It's just a conversation starter. A lot of issues are nuanced, and we allow for that because that's common sense. Multiple perspectives can be true at the same time. So these are the topics we're going to discuss and more on today's episode. So buckle up. It begins right now.
Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
All right. And of course, I'm wearing this Cleveland Browns hat today because it is Black Monday in the NFL, and head coach Kevin Stefanski has been fired. Finally. Get out of here. Dude was unable to capitalize on prime Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. Refused to work with Baker Mayfield, ran him out of town, mortgaged the farm, convinced the GM and the owner that they couldn't possibly win with Baker Mayfield. Of course you could. Of course you could have. You keep Baker, you had assets. Instead, they traded away 4 first-round draft. I think it was 4 first-round draft picks and a whole bunch more, 3 or 4. In the worst trade in NFL history. And then Stefanski ruined Deshaun Watson, who came in. Massage Watson, he's called. So I cover sports. We're going to talk about all of that. I do a show called The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. If any of you want merch, shoot me a Venmo, $30 for a set of 4 Ohio-made wooden coasters. 2 for $50, 1 for $30, or $25 for the pin, The Unhappy Hour. But that's to say we're going to cover that a little bit later, just making an homage to the sports show there, because tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Strictly Football with myself, Mike Barra, Jim Mitchell, and Ezrael Robinson. We'll be on season 2, episode number 24, 25 of Strictly Football. So we'll discuss all of what we learned in the final week of NFL action, and check out that show as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the program. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. This is where we will share stories that become talking points on the TNAM Daily Show. So this is how you get a sneak preview of what we're going to talk about. What is this? Trump is warning Europe about changing the population to import tons of people who are not native-born citizens. Why would anyone want to do that?
But it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy egregious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that.
There's a pretty good reminder. All right, of course, we're all here for the Venezuela story, so let's get into it. What is this post claiming? David Harris Jr., millions of Venezuelans celebrating the news of the collapse of the Maduro regime. Then you'll hear the other side say, no, none of these videos were people celebrating in Venezuela. They're all celebrating in other countries. They're still scared to celebrate in Venezuela. Godfather of Chaos says this video is from July 29 of 25, anti-Maduro rally in Caracas, Venezuela. So here's the thing you need to know, being a savvy consumer of media. Anytime you see a gathering or a protest or a riot or cheering, you have to assume that it's not what it says it is. I don't know if that's the case in this case, but you have heard that bandied about. Chris McNeil, reflog_18 on Twitter. He has a reoccurring meme where he'll show pictures of the Cavs parade, the Cleveland Cavaliers 2016 championship parade, of which I flew back to attend. And I later did I later followed McNeil around with his family as he put on a parody parade in protest for the winless Cleveland Browns. But when big news stories come up, he'll post, look at the millions of people celebrating the removal of Maduro in Venezuela, and he'll post a picture of the Cleveland Cavaliers or a video of the Cavaliers parade packing the streets. And without fail, he will get people grabbing it and sharing it as if it's real. So you just have to consider the fact that anytime a video of people gathered and celebrating something, it might be from a soccer rally the year before, it might be from a totally different continent, who knows? So anyway, who knows on that in particular? Who is this? Eric Daughtry says, this is a Venezuelan man explaining to everyone why Maduro needed to be toppled, because I think a lot of Make America Great Again, America First patriots don't really want to be playing Team America, world police. It's not really in the DNA of the idealistic Trump supporter who doesn't want to believe that he's going to be just like Bush, just like Obama, just like Biden, just like Clinton. Doesn't want to be Team America, world police. Just focus on America. That's the Ron Paul, the Thomas Massey, the libertarian crowd. It's idealistic. It's accurate to a certain degree. It's also very short-sighted, and it's also very, very incomplete, because the opposite of action is not just inaction, it's allowing others' actions. We have a video we'll play for you in a second, but it's somebody roughly being translated, if you can believe the translation, which you can't. Can't believe anything these days, but I teach you this. And it's not about any particular story, what I'm allegedly trying to teach you. It's just, I'm trying to teach you how to consume media. Just ways to assume that the way things are being reported might not be accurate. And that's okay. They might be directionally true, but factually inaccurate, or shades of gray in between, or just total frauds, or intentional scams, or misrepresentations, or mistakes. There's so many different varieties on the color spectrum of how to view a story. Multiple things can be true at once as well. But this is Eric Daughtry here, shared this Venezuelan man explaining why Maduro needed to be toppled, because you got to admit, a lot of America First people woke up and didn't give a shit about Maduro yesterday. Why do they care today? Well, this guy's explaining.
Okay, as a Venezuelan American, I got some shit to say. My family, my parents, my sister, my extended family, all lost everything. Their work, their savings, their investments, gone. Wiped out by a narco dictatorship that has held Venezuela in a death grip for over 25 years.
Now, I don't know if this person is a legit random commenter that went viral because it's so eloquently stated, or is this a psyop? Is this part of the psychological operation to make you support a war effort? That's how you should view these things. I don't know this person. I don't know their background. I don't know their history. Is it just some person? And all these accusations, are they correct? Or is this part of the theater? Is this part of the paid just like how you'll see astroturfed or grassroots. I don't know why we don't see protests nationwide. Every time Trump does anything, people will print up banners and activate the people and give you $100 if you come on out today and raise these signs and yell these slogans and sing these songs and bang on these drums. Okay. So as you see videos of brave women taking off their hijabs, standing on top of a car in Iran, yeah, maybe. Or maybe that's part of the psyop. Or maybe it's footage from a soccer victory half a year ago in Italy. Who knows? Who knows? But let's take a listen to what he has to say. He says that the people were brutalized and just absolutely robbed blind.
And what happened to my family has happened to millions. And yes, millions. The Venezuelan exodus is the second largest displacement crisis on earth after Syria. This is not just a tragedy. It is one of the great humanitarian disasters of our time. But the suffering doesn't end there. This regime has jailed hundreds of political prisoners.
Remember how all the J6ers were jailed? The ones saying, what are you doing? 6 states are going to pause. Trump's coasting to an easy blowout, and now all these states are going to pause, and you're going to flip all these over how many hours, how many days, how many weeks? Like, what? And there were protesters that said, this is not okay. They walked around the Capitol, and the people that were around there were rounded up as insurrectionists. No, they were the opposite. They were yelling, I think there's been an insurrection. Can you double check that count? Nope. Got to hurry up and certify. Got to hurry up and certify. Biden with Obama pulling the puppet strings, the deep state hacks, Comey, Clapper, Brennan. They were jailing conservatives all across the country, libertarians across the country, MAGA supporters, Republicans, the right, non-wacky leftists, non-globalists being arrested, hunted by the Obama-Biden regime. That's not cool. Could you imagine how that would feel? Well, yeah, you know what? I actually can imagine how that would feel. Having your livelihood yanked away from you. Yeah, I actually, when you team up with big tech and they silence you and they take your company away and you can't broadcast, you can't exist, you can't cover the news like everybody else for some reason, you're deemed unworthy of growing your company, building an empire, getting your message out. Yeah. Wow. I wonder what it would be like to face such discrimination in your own country. Yeah, I think I can relate. Yeah, I think I can sort of relate.
Thousands have been murdered.
Now, thousands murdered. We can talk about Fauci and we can talk about what Biden was forcing onto people. Yeah, well, Trump's the godfather of the jab. You know, he's the one that did an Operation Warp Speed. Yeah, it was always your option. Your medical freedom remained intact until the Democrats seized control of America in 2020 in a hostile takeover and tried to force this stuff into you. You don't work in this town unless you take what I'm giving you. My name's Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, it's Diddy. You can't work in this town unless you take what I'm putting inside you. Yeah, that's what Biden and the Democrats, what the deep state did to our military members, to our nurses and doctors, to our teachers. Look everywhere you can look, and the Democrats were trying to force you into a decision that you did not agree with. You did not want, you did not select, you did not choose. And how many people have had complications from that? How many people have succumbed because of that? We don't have accurate data. I couldn't tell you. Do you think it's more than 0? Ask the J6ers if they were rounded up and targeted for their political beliefs, their lives ruined. Ask Rudy Giuliani. Ask General Flynn. Ask Steve Bannon. Go down the laundry list of people that were harassed and destroyed by the deep state. Yeah, so I guess, were hundreds or millions, what number did he say? Hundreds or thousands murdered? You're going to have to come up with the math on people who had experimental medicine complications. I don't have that number. But as we cover on this show every day, every week, more information comes out and we become more aware of how safe and effective, when something's sold to you one particular way and it comes out very different on the data. Yeah, that's worthy of talking about, but that's one of the many topics that a YouTube or a Facebook, Instagram, Meta, they don't want to be held accountable for their lies. We played you the CBS anchor that was like, sometimes we listen to the experts a little too much. And, the news it's not coming through the right way. No. You lied to us. It's not that you listened to the wrong people. You intentionally kept lying to us. And we've stopped watching you because of that. You can try to lie on your way back, but you didn't even admit to what you did. You didn't even say, well, it helped our candidate, Biden, so we ignored his mental acuity. We ignored this story, that story, the other story. So it comes in from many different perspectives. So do we have those numbers? No. Were they literally death camps like maybe this man's claiming in Venezuela? Maybe not in the way that he's saying it. Maybe in more of a North Korea kind of way, in a Cuba kind of way, in a Iranian. These are all civil rights violating, abusive, anti-human regimes that are just brutalizing their people. So this dude has every right to say what he's saying. I have additional questions about all of it.
Simply for speaking out. More than a third of the population has fled. 1/3. Not for better opportunities or for the American dream, but to survive.
Yeah, and the stories coming out of Venezuela, eating rats to survive, and I mean, you could you could do a couple of hours of the horror stories of what the warmth of collectivism brought the fine people of Venezuela when their country was stolen about a quarter of a century ago.
To live, because staying often means death. And while the world may see Venezuela as a collapsed state, what it is in reality is an occupied one. Our territory, our natural resources, and our institutions have been overrun by hostile foreign powers. Iranian militias, Chinese corporations, Russian intelligence, all exploiting our country with impunity. Venezuela is no longer just a local crisis. It is now a geopolitical threat that endangers the entire Western Hemisphere. It has become a launch pad for an authoritarian expansion in the Americas.
So the part that you might not be understanding is the extent to which what he's saying there, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, this axis of evil, this anti-American coalition has sort of been using Venezuela to just loot and plunder the people, to bleed them dry. And the Don-Roe Doctrine says in this hemisphere, the U.S. is going to run this stuff. By what authority does President Trump have to act? Who is he to topple regimes and install kings? That is the obvious response you'll hear. And I'll play you some of these perspectives. But the flip side to that is, what was the alternative and what was the actuality of what was happening today, yesterday, the day before the operation? Let's continue.
And in the midst of all of this, one woman has dared to lead the charge for freedom. Maria Corina Machado. In 2024, against every odd, she led a peaceful democratic uprising that won the election. Her team smuggled physical voting receipts out of the country, hard proof of victory that the regime tried to bury. Her courage has lit a fire in the hearts of millions of Venezuelans desperate to believe that change is still possible.
And this video comes off a little bit like he's reading this. I can't see his eyes moving on the screen, but it sounds like he's reading the script, like an advertisement campaign for Maria, whatever her name is.
But now some have questioned her decision to dedicate her Nobel Prize to Donald Trump. Okay, I get that. But here's the truth. It was a brilliant strategic move in the global chessboard of politics. Maria Corina is no fool. She knows exactly the kind of man Trump is. She knows how much he campaigned for it, loudly and relentlessly, to win. Okay.
There's not a second part to this. Mike Barra, who I do the Strictly Football show with, He posted this on his Instagram feed. He said, this is the updated current map of the USA. It shows the USA, and then Hawaii, the continental United States, and then Hawaii over here, and Alaska up here. And then looks like Venezuela down here, among others. I'll put in the comments the Don-Roe Doctrine. All right. Joe Lang here. Video has no sound. The Bush family just shit a brick. Venezuela became a narco state under the direction of George H.W. Bush, who installed a leader there many years ago and then sent his son Jeb Bush to set up the drug trafficking routes and money laundering system. Most people have no clue, is the claim. And I also don't know if that's an accurate depiction of how that played out. But I can tell you this much. We're going to look back at previous regimes and how they were involved with Venezuela, what they were allowing, what they were not allowing, who they were propping up, and for what reason. Now it begins. We're going to look back on what Biden did for 4 years, what Obama did for 4 years. Look back at Obama's first 2 of 3 terms, and then the Bushes before that. In trying to make sense of this, you've got to unwind things. You got to pull the thread and walk away. Weezer, if you want to destroy this sweater, pull this thread as I walk away. And that's what they're going to be doing. That's what we need to do in hindsight to get some perspective here. Breitbart put this out on Instagram and says, if your knee-jerk instinct is to side with a narco-terrorist cartel boss, it might be a time to take a hard look at your political views. Yeah, no kings, though. Here it is. OSINT Defender shares the moment that former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, arrived in a Bearcat flanked by heavily armed federal agents tonight, I guess yesterday, at the DEA building in New York City.
Excuse me? Sorry?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, I think he says.
Bienvenidos. Good night, good night. Good night.
Looks like he's limping. I don't know if he walks that way. Watcher in the comments says, wow, the wife can't stop smiling. Must be a sweet deal they worked out. They will be convicted, air quote, and pardoned by Trump. There's no way no soldiers were even wounded kidnapping him and his wife from the presidential palace. LMAO, what a joke. You will hear every perspective on this story. Here's Batya Unger Sargon's perspective on it. You know, it's just, I just took down my Ukraine and Somali flags. Now I have to put up my Venezuela flag. Whatever President Trump is in favor of, the Democrats have to be the opposite. It is like clockwork for them. They cannot help themselves. And I think that's what Batya Unger Sargon is kind of calling out here, perhaps rightfully so.
Really am skeptical about this narrative that somehow this is a pro-war Trump or that this isn't consistent with his promises to the MAGA movement. You know, people are acting like the problem with our, pointless forever wars of regime change that cost us billions and billions of dollars and tens of thousands of precious souls was the regime change part, not the pointless bloodshed and loss of treasure part, right? In their ego eagerness to oppose Trump. You have people on the left, all the Democrats, and then, of course, someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene acting like, the world isn't better off without a dictator like Maduro in charge of a country very close to the United States and constantly trying to harm our citizens. Of course, it's better. This isn't a war. This was a very targeted military operation that totally succeeded, and the war part was over by the time we all found out about it. So I really don't see this as consistent at all or inconsistent at all with the promises the president had made. Venezuela is not Afghanistan. 25 years ago, there was a functioning democracy. There is muscle memory there. There is a middle class that remembers how to do that. And I will just say one more point, which is the political angle here. Working class Americans, drug overdoses, immigration, and crime are their top concerns. And these were all issues where Maduro was attacking us over and over and over again. This operation is unbelievably popular with Latinos, who the president had been losing support with. So this just seems like a total win for us. Now, of course, it could go bad. When he says we're going to run it, this could end up costing us a lot of money. But knowing what I know about Trump, that just seems so unlikely. This is a person who hates being taken advantage of. So I just don't see that happening at all. Really does see himself as a president of peace. And you have to understand how destabilizing this action against Maduro was for all of our other adversaries. There were Chinese officials there in Venezuela at the time of this, attack. It's just crazy. I mean, the signal that sends to Xi Jinping about who's in charge, the signal it sends to the Russians, who of course have a very close connection with the Venezuelans over oil, the Iranian regime, who relied on Venezuelan oil to keep itself afloat. In the span of a 4-hour precise military operation, the president has signaled to every single one of our adversaries who is in charge. He's not just making promises, he's actually fulfilling them. I really am.
Yep. We have witnessed. My cat Ben is just screeching at me. I think he wants treats or something. We've just witnessed the birth, of the Don-Roe Doctrine. For good or for bad. I mean, I couldn't imagine how this would be bad. Especially since we're not anticipating a 15-year forever war because of the results. Let me look this up. When was Maduro indicted? For what and by who? 2020, I think, was the year. Department of Justice. March 26th, 2020, by the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York. During the Trump term, in his first term. Okay, that wasn't mathing for me as I was trying to say, well, wait a minute. It couldn't be Biden if it was 2020, because Trump was 16 through 20. And then 21 was when Biden seized control of the country. There was a recent superseding indictment unsealed January of 26, adding charges against his wife, Celia Flores, and others during the second Trump term. Narco-terrorism conspiracy partnering with the FARC, F-A-R-C, a designated terrorist group, to traffic cocaine as a weapon against the U.S. So the people say, no, it wasn't even fentanyl. It's not even killing us. It's not about drugs. It's not about saving Americans. Okay. I don't think anyone's using the word fentanyl except the people that are trying to hate this policy just because it's something Trump did. And I'll play you, there's countless clips of Democrats blasting Trump for not getting rid of Maduro. And then there's JD, was it Rubio? I think it was Rubio talking with Margaret Brennan. First, she's angry that they did anything. And then she's angry that they didn't do 5 times as much. There is no placating. There's no pacifying the anti-Trump, orange man bad, Trump derangement syndrome crew. Nothing. Whatever he does, I've said it. If President Trump came out and said, this is such a gorgeous day, sun is shining, it's beautiful out here in Washington, D.C., we're going to hold this press conference outside today. We'll see you in an hour. The legacy media, the Democrat sympathizers, the deep state plants and actors, they would come out and they'd be selling galoshes and umbrellas to the dupes at home, because if Trump was for it, you must be against it. It is a knee-jerk reaction. It is reflexive to these people. All right, April Silverman, Cali MAGA Barbie. President Trump discussing Tim Walz on national TV.
One thing we haven't heard you specifically react
with Lindsey Graham, Warhawk Lindsey Graham here on Air Force One.
to is the Minnesota fraud that we've seen play out.
Well, it just doesn't get worse. I've reacted. It's almost not even believable. This very stupid, low IQ governor, he's a very stupid man, because, I had a campaign against him with JD, and he's a stupid man, and he's a corrupt politician, and the Somalians are ripping off our country to the tune of, looks like $19 billion, but that's only what they can find. So usually when you look at it 19, that would mean it could be 50, but the numbers are astronomical. Think of it. They have a dead country. They don't have government. They don't have any.
And by the way, real quick, he's talking about how Somalia is just a total train wreck of a country. But what he's saying there is that they found 19 trillion in fraud. 19 billion. What's a few billion or trillion between friends, eh? If you found 19, it's got to be way more than that. And that's why when people say, oh, there's 13 million illegal alien invaders, there's like 20 million illegal, double it. It's at least 40. If you know about 20, it's got to be double that. Because by nature, these are people trying to sneak in and not get caught, and you're still catching all these people. Imagine the ones you didn't even notice, the ones you pretended you didn't notice. It's got to be way bigger than that. And that's what President Trump's saying about the fraud that the Democrats have been using nationwide. It's not just Somalis. It's not just Minneapolis and Columbus. This is nationwide, and it's Democrat-driven. The Democrats have become a domestic terrorist organization in this country, plundering, laundering, stealing our treasure to give it to non-American-born people to come in and change our way of life and to vote for communist crap. If you look at New York City, native-born New Yorkers did not vote for Kami Mamdani. It was foreign-born voters. I wonder if I'm articulating that. I can see the chart where it shows the percentage of American-born New York residents overwhelmingly did not vote for Mamdani. Non-native born did. So I guess naturalized. Anyway, Trump continues.
Anything. They don't have a military. All they do is run around shooting people and trying to capture ships. We don't let them take ships anymore. You know why? We use the same exact missile on them that we use on the drug carriers. And it's very effective. You notice there's nobody capturing ships anymore? Because as they head out to go capture the ship, and the ship doesn't want to fire back because it's very flammable stuff in many cases. And the insurance companies don't want, because they build $1 billion ship, and they don't want anybody firing rockets into the ship. But we're hitting them so hard, and it's very similar. Same missile system. It's called deadly accurate. And do you notice that ships aren't being taken anymore? The pirates are.
That's right. I hadn't thought about
The pirates aren't. Well,
no Somali pirates.
It's actually very easy. They head out. We say, guess what? There's pirates. Bing. That's the end of the pirates.
Bing. That's the end of the pirates. All you gotta do is care. I'll put a Bing button here. Here's one of the articles. This isn't exactly what I recall looking at, but Dr. Malouf put this out saying, most Zoran Mamdani voters have lived in New York for less than 5 to 10 years. People born in New York overwhelmingly rejected him because they remember. They voted Cuomo 45 to 34. People who just got into New York less than 5 years ago, more than 8 out of 10 of the newcomers. This is why you don't want your country ran by non-citizens, by newcomers, by non-native born Americans. They don't have the same values. Nobody should elect a commie like Mamdani. You got to be kidding me. Anyway, that's one of the charts. But you get the point. It's similar. I was seeing a side by side, but that'll give you the gist of what I was talking about. Anyway. Lance Gooden here tells you in 1 week the Democrats have, let's go through the laundry list of Democrat accomplishments with their 70% approval rating. Democrats have defended Venezuela's dictator. Good on you. They've ignored Iranian freedom protests. Yeah, because who would want to get those great people of Iran away from that Islamic supremacist violent regime that's crushing their freedom? Democrats have opposed Somali fraud investigations. They literally hate you if you're a native-born American. They hate you. And you get a chance to hate them in November and vote every single one of them out. And the red wave that comes from that, yeah, I know, it's tough. It's tough to trust a plan or, oh, yeah, they'll get around to the indictments because you just scream, where are the indictments? Why are there no indictments? What's happening with the indictments? That's fair. The one retort that you hear sometimes is it is razor thin and they can't get anything done. You got to cycle out another batch of rhinos and another batch of deep state Democrats. Flush the toilet and then you can get to work. It's still overflowing and you get to flush in November. Lance Gooden says this tells you everything you need to know about today's Democrat Party. Toria Brooks shares a drop. Let's unpack some of these. Revolution happening in Iran. Anti-government youth seizing and setting fire to several Revolutionary Guard bases, including the IRGC Bazij Force Base in Neiritz, Fars province. Maybe that's accurate. Are these good guys or are these not good guys? And is this just the same theater kids that Scott Adams will always talk about, that politics is really just Democrats are just theater kids? Is this the same performance art stuff, the Green Revolution, trying to film a couple of these things and make you think it's everywhere? I don't know. Visegrad 24 says the acting president of the Venezuelan regime, Delcy Rodriguez, just posted this picture and message saying, quote, "We invite the U.S. government to work jointly on a cooperation agenda." Okay. Will that be a good thing? Venezuela reaffirms commitment to peace and peaceful coexistence. Moving forward, inviting the U.S. government, President Trump, our peoples in our region deserve peace and dialogue, not war. This has always been President Maduro's message of all Venezuela right now. This is Venezuela, have the right to peace, development, sovereignty, and peaceful. Oh, whoa. U.S. Department of Labor says patriots are in control, and we're never giving up our fight to put America first. It's a nice timestamp, U.S. Department of Labor. Stay with me, deplorables. You'll love how this movie ends. This is just timestamp and trust the plan stuff, but really, did the U.S. Department of Labor just post Trump as saying patriots are in control? That's noteworthy. All right, here is Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking to George Snuffleupagus, the former mouthpiece of the Clinton regime. This was an interesting back and forth. David Bann saying something I caught that they mentioned quickly is that they shut the power off the whole country of Venezuela before they went in. I mean, it's what I would do. It's the very first thing anybody would do, which is why you need to try to get a backup plan for power together. A really good idea to do so.
What's going to happen here is that we have a quarantine on their oil. That means their economy will not be able to move forward until the conditions that are in the national interest of the United States and the interest of the Venezuelan people are met. And that's what we intend to do. So that leverage remains, that leverage is ongoing, and we expect that it's going to lead to results here. We're hopeful that it does, positive results for the people of Venezuela, but ultimately, most importantly for us, in the national interest of the United States. We will no longer have, hopefully, as we move forward here, we'll set the conditions so that we no longer have in our hemisphere a Venezuela that's the crossroads for many of our adversaries around the world, including Iran and Hezbollah, is no longer sending us drug gangs, is no longer sending us drug boats, is no longer a narco-trafficking paradise for all those drugs coming out of Colombia to go in through the Caribbean and towards the United States. And obviously, we want a better future for the people of Venezuela. We want them to have an oil industry where the wealth goes to the people, not to a handful of corrupt individuals and stolen by, pirates all over the world. That's what we're working towards, and we intend to use the leverage we have to help achieve that.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions. So I don't know, is a court not a legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again, I'll do it one more time. What we are running is the direction that this is going to moving forward. And that is, we have leverage. This leverage we are using and we intend to use. We started using already. You can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil, and we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one. That will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what we intend to do. The legal authority is the court orders that we have.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you, he said it was the defense secretary, he said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
He's asked the same question 4 different times, and they keep answering.
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. First of all, what's going to happen here is...
Yeah, Stephanopoulos is a special breed. All right, Catherine Herridge again.
We eventually broadcast...
This is about what CBS was up to and how they worked to rig the 2020 election by not covering the Hunter Biden story accurately. They knew it would hurt the Bidens, so they ignored it. And they lied about it. They said Trump was crazy for bringing up such a fake story.
Asked a story about the Hunter Biden laptop after the midterm elections in 2022. We commissioned a forensic review. I got a copy of the laptop data. I have it here still. I went to a lot of effort to get the cleanest copy of the laptop data, the same data that was provided to the FBI, because I didn't want to have any professional journalistic risk for CBS News. I wanted this thing to be totally locked down. When we did the story, we did it after the midterms. I argued against that because it was ready before the midterms. And my training is that you should always do the story when it's ready to go. You should not be dictated by the political cycle. Once we got the laptop story on the morning news, I felt that there was so much there that we could still do. For example, in the text messages, there's unfortunately the use of the N-word, the liberal use of the N-word. And I thought this was worthy of a story, but I was told that it was not something that interested CBS News. Then I asked.
The racist Bidens machine gunning out N-bombs was not relevant, according to CBS. The same group that will constantly use the Obama doctrine to it's the Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, divisive, toxic, racist arson that they commit every day in public. Every day the Democrats have nothing but division to try to make it seem like Trump supporters or Republicans or libertarians or non-Democrat supporters are all racist. Yes, everyone's a racist, or whatever that even means at this point. It's been lied about and bandied about and manufactured, invented, misinterpreted, really just used as something to bludgeon their political opponents with. Learn from Jackson and Sharpton. That's how you shake down a company, and that's how you shake down a country. So you finally find this old racist piece of crap. Well, I mean, whether it's Hunter Biden, I think she's referencing Hunter. But I actually don't know the full context. You assume it's that whole racist family. But that's the trick. The Democrats point their finger and accuse the others. 3 fingers are pointing back at themselves. Every time they make an accusation, it's threefold coming back at them. So you got all this out there, and if you don't know whether to vote for me or vote for Trump, then you ain't black. Play that side by side with Hunter Biden dropping the N-bomb hundreds of times. What are we talking about? The liberal use of that, and she felt that there was a story there, and the higher up said, nah, we got to try to run cover and try to get them installed. That's relevant. That's relevant. And now some journalists are finding their spine, finding a little bit of center. I mean, I appreciate it now, but it's just like you wish there were more people speaking up at the time. Marion says, I wasn't sure if this was live or a repeat, as I don't think I got a notification. Yeah, today's show went a little earlier. Today. Normally don't really launch the show until about 57 minutes from now. But today we're going to have to wrap up around that time. So, yes, this is live. Hello, Marion. David, everybody in chat. Hit like, hit subscribe, share the show with a friend. Remember, Rumble Rants, Super Chats, great way to toss something in the tip jar, as well as signing up to be a monthly Patreon subscriber or a Rumble or YouTube subscriber. It looks like when you sign up for Rumble, it's like $5 a month, and I think they only take 15 cents out for a monthly subscriber. So that's a good way to give us a building block on Rumble, just to sign up and go, yep, here's a cornerstone every month. $5, you get something to build upon. So that's a pretty good thing. But yes, we are live right now. Back to Catherine Herridge.
For a forensic review of the laptop, and we found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that.
Yeah, half a dozen emails used while they're circumventing what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do because they're robbing us blind. That's what the Democrats exist to do, is loot America dry.
That was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is of the emails. But that was going to be a years-long process. So there was no way. So there were a lot of reasons I was told not to do it, not to pursue it. I spent a lot of my time at CBS following the Hunter Biden story. And one of the things that really struck me is this kind of disconnect. I didn't understand how a senior executive like George Chiefs could tell me that this was a high priority for the network and for his boss. And yet the executives at CBS News, show producers, anchors could refuse that. I came to the conclusion that they must have felt that they were more powerful than George Cheeks, which was astonishing to me. I'd never worked at a place where a directive from the top would be so defied
All right. Glad to finally know the story is coming out. It's a story of manipulation, rigging elections via running cover for Democrats, and a story of censorship and disinformation by disinformation. I'll just leave it at that. I want to play this, but I don't think I can.
What you assume is the most major threat on the world stage. Anybody?
So Jack Ryan, a grounded, realistic thriller about an ordinary CIA analyst who keeps getting pulled into extraordinary situations. It's Jack Ryan, and they're talking about Venezuela. Anyway, I can't play it because it'll flag it, but you should watch this. And it's about how important, well...
Is cool with Venezuela? No.
Everyone's cool with Venezuela. Let me ask you this. Which one of those places claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet? More than Saudi, more than Iran? What about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined. The fact that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. Why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in modern history? Let's meet President Nicolas Reyes. After rising to power on the wave of nationalist. Anyway, pride in a mere 6 years, the guy has crippled the national economy by half. Raised the poverty rate by almost 400%. Luckily for the rest of us, he's up for re-election. So, who's running against him? And this is sort of the plot there. So yeah, dig into Venezuela and realize how many people have fled there and ended up in America. And it's been a problem. Andre Nuta says, during Trump's first term, Maduro stayed in power after an illegitimate election. Mainstream media Democrat, lying legacy media Democrats repeatedly claimed that Maduro was remaining in power. And that was proof that Trump was Putin's puppet. The same people in this video will now be condemning Trump. Try to make this make sense for historical context.
Even in Latin America, the same pattern. While U.S. public support for Venezuela's self-declared interim president Juan Guaido seems to have diminished, strongman Nicolas Maduro is still in power as Russia's support for him remains steadfast, sending a clear message to the world of America in retreat and Vladimir Putin filling the void. And you know, it's remarkable because Vladimir Putin isn't even that popular here in Russia right now because of the bad economic situation and a botched pension reform. So these foreign policy gifts that he keeps getting from President Trump not only make him stronger abroad, but also help keep him in power here in Russia as well, Brianna.
All right, Fred, thank you so much for that report. Okay, so, you know, one of the arguments the president makes is that these places are thousands of miles away. The U.S. doesn't need to involve itself. And hey, if Russia is going to get involved, so be it.
Part of what President Putin's been doing is looking for spots in the world where there is a leadership vacuum and an opening to have influence.
Everyone who knows anything about foreign policy tells you that there's an impact when a global power like the United States is led by someone who actively says we need to pull back. We don't need to be defending these people. Where were they, you know, in the Peloponnesian Wars, whatever.
But I think they underestimate the damage that Russia...
Where were they in the Peloponnesian Wars? That is, wow. I feel like clipping that and playing that all the time.
Can do just by sowing chaos and by supporting authoritarians. We've seen this in Europe. So that it's not a
Oh yeah, there's Bill Crystal repeating the sowing chaos. Trump, it's a chaos, chaos, chaos. They get their talking points. You can tell the most heavily entrenched liars when they use the exact verbiage of the note cards they're given the night before. They're just puppets reading this stuff.
China type competitor, but the world can get a heck of a lot more dangerous if Russia helps authoritarianism, doesn't mind the spread of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons.
Russia's free press.
Russia's free press shows other authoritarians how to do this.
Why is he so susceptible to this kind of message coming from Putin?
I mean, he likes authoritarian thugs.
Yeah, he likes authoritarian thugs. I'm Peppermint Patty. He likes authoritarian thugs.
He responds to them.
He responds to them.
They probably know how to manage him and flatter him. There is an element.
They flatter him.
It's whenever any leader of state or even high-level diplomatic officials meeting with another country where they are flattering you and they're trying to kind of get you on good terms. Trump is very susceptible to that. And
yeah, he's very susceptible to that.
Putin seems to have a special. Putin seems to have special.
Maybe he has
clout with Trump.
Even in
yeah, they have a special clout. I love the Wayback Machine. I want to play this with the music, but I can't. How did the Somali fraud get so bad in Minneapolis? Here's the mayor of Minneapolis.
Maga Egawa Jacob Fry.
There you go. Baga Baga Weegawa Jacob Fry.
Sha'abka Sommelier.
He's a sommelier now.
Minneapolis is long standing and it's deep. We will.
Here's your puppet. You will be the mouthpiece of the overthrow of 2% of our American states. You will work with the Democrats to overthrow Minneapolis, a conquered nation, conquered by Somalis. Wow. And Waltz just dropped out of re-election race. When is his indictment? Yeah, our founding fathers would, well, you know. Speaking of founding fathers, what type of country do you want to live in? Well, that sort of depends, doesn't it? Let's take a look in. Raging Europeans compiled a list of, let's check in with Europe. How are they doing? Berlin, firebomb. London, you got Islamic supremacists banging on right there on the top of the bus. Saw this video going around. Amsterdam, hey, that's a church on fire. Isn't that lovely? Probably brought to you by native-born Amsterdamians, or not. Bruxelles. Berlin. Oh, a firebombing of a car and another car in Berlin. Hey, more shooting. Throw is Paris. Yeah, look. The tolerant, peaceful ones are destroying your Europe. You've been overthrown, Europe. What do you do now? What comes next? The dude 248 put this out and says, here is a surprise new president in Venezuela, Donaldo Juan Trumches. So stupid. So stupid. Love it, 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 love it. Oh, that's so stupid and perfect. Make this go viral. The Wayback Machine takes us to 2020. Here's Chuck Schumer criticizing Trump because, hold on, let's check our notes on why this goofball puppet is blasting Trump in 5 years ago.
About all these things he wants to do or is doing, but his actions belie his words. Maybe the best metaphor.
They belie his words. That's totally not scripted speech. I speak of belying words all the time, says I.
Was his claim to bring democracy to Venezuela. There was a big policy there. It flopped. If the policy was working, Juan Guaido wouldn't be in the balcony here. He'd be in Venezuela. He'd be sitting in the president's palace, or at least waging a fight to win. He's here. And the president brags about his Venezuela policy? Give us a break. He hasn't brought an end to the Maduro regime. The Maduro regime is more powerful today and more entrenched today than it was when the president began. He brags about.
Yeah, how's that working out today, Chucky Schumer? Let's check in on the rest of the Democrat Party. Whew, long day of work. I'm done defending Somali fraudsters. This week, I'm defending Nicolas Maduro. That's it. You just got it. What's worse? Here's question of the day. It must be more difficult being a Democrat fan than a Cleveland Browns fan. It must be more difficult supporting the Democrats than it is to support the Cleveland Browns. Agree or disagree? Yes, got Patriot Warrior Texas there in the live chat saying, wow. Oh, wow. Howdy. Yeah, we went a little early today. Sometimes you got to do things. Sometimes you got to make appointments. Sometimes you got to do things. Schedules get in the way. But, I mean, look, we went live on a special show Saturday to give you the update on what happened with Maduro just as soon as we could. It was only a 20-minute-er. We kept it moving real fast. But, yeah, we've always said that we may end up changing the time of this show to something a little bit more in the morning, something a little bit more in the evening. Don't know that there's a long-term change on that front at this moment. There might be. Nothing imminent, but always be prepared that the show could change its time. That's for sure. But yeah, it's got to be more difficult defending Democrats than it is defending the Cleveland Browns. David agrees. David, you're a Bills fan. Congratulations. You made the playoffs again. Good luck to you. Marion also agrees. Question of the day. It's got to be more difficult defending these Democrats than defending the Browns. And that's saying something. Dale Stark put this out and says, Pete Hegseth deserves an apology from all the bedwetters who screamed that he was unqualified. Turns out prioritizing lethality over dudes pretending to be women is actually good for the military. I shared you from the Raging Europeans post, and this was from the Raging Americans post. C3 reporting that states are still blocking no tax on tips. California, Colorado, Illinois, all of the backward, conquered Democrat, deep state, mob-run states. California, Colorado, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York. Blocking no tax on tips. Imagine doing this to hardworking people that rely on tips while giving free everything to illegals that don't work. Sickening. Homestead on the Rise put this out. It sounded like an interesting quote. If conviction costs you, it's probably worth something. If conviction costs you, it's probably worth something. And yes, I will say that running the New American Media for 15 years there's an opportunity cost. Everything that you do is at the expense of something else you could be doing. I do believe I was born to do this. I was born to rifle through the rubbish, trying to separate fake news from fact, trying to teach you how to think about stories, where to be skeptical, trying to deliver some laughs and some interesting thoughts, some good conversation, some entertainment as well. But yeah, if conviction costs you something, it was probably worth something. But that would be a good time to remind you that we do have our Patreon account, and you can sign up to be a member on Rumble and YouTube. Yeah, it looks like the monthly subscribers on Rumble, 98% of that appears to be coming right back to the content creator. Which I think something like that, out of $5 a month, like on the low tier, $4.85 goes into the Rumble account. So that's like a good building block, as well as Patreon. I think they take 5%, 10%, 7%. It's still good. It's still good. But yeah, conviction definitely costs something, and we got a lot of years to catch up on. It's been years of dedicating, service to the craft of trying to figure out how to run all of this, and how to filter, and how to follow, and how to refine, and how to bring basically news collation, dredging the interwebs and trying to deliver a show that gives you a nice scatter shot and leaves you educated and entertained a little bit. David says Jacksonville in the crosshairs. Hey, you know what? Here, let's just let me pull it up, because we will be doing our NFL show tomorrow. Let me give you a couple updates. Browns fire head coach Kevin Stefanski will keep general manager Andrew Berry. Giants general manager Schoen is returning despite a 4-13 season. Falcons fire Morris and Fontenot, even though they had a hot finish. Bengals are keeping Coach Taylor and their top executive Tobin. Crazy Steelers Ravens game. Steelers back and forth. That was pretty wild if you didn't watch that game. Let me show you the playoff bracket, who's playing who. Broncos are the 1 seed. They're going to get a bye. Whoop, full screen here. Broncos are the 1 seed in the East. In the AFC, rather. Seahawks get a bye in the NFC. Broncos are going to play the winner of Steelers-Texans. Jaguars are playing at the Bills. So that's going to be on the road in the cold. That'll be helpful for the Bills. Patriots are at the Chargers. That's crazy. The number 2 seed has to go out to play the 7 seed. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that, how that happens. Seahawks will play the winner of Panthers-Rams. Unfortunately, Baker Mayfield did get the win, but the Falcons beat the Saints, and so on a tiebreaker, the Panthers lost and made their way into winning their division. So Panthers-Rams will play the Seahawks. Eagles are going to San Francisco. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be a great game. And the Bears travel to Lambeau. The 2 seed Bears take on the 7 Packers. So that's what's happening in the world of sports. All right. As I mentioned, this is our X feed at American_media_. Please make sure you're following us on X. And right here at the top of the page is our link to the Patreon, where you can subscribe to become a monthly donor. Super appreciated. All right. So is Matt right? Can you explain why Tim Walz has not been arrested? Bellin F says, if I ran a publicly traded company and it was discovered that 50% of all investors' funds were fraudulently funneled to fake daycares and fake hospitals to send money to foreign countries, I would be in prison tomorrow. Can someone explain to me why Tim Walz isn't in prison? I don't know if he's exactly right or just directionally accurate there, but it doesn't make sense why this dude isn't indicted yet. Tim Walz ends his political career in shame as one of the most corrupt governors in history, according to a Walthrop GOP. Let's take a listen to this Fox News report. Breaking news. Oh my gosh. And this is the person that the Democrats installed to be their number 2 crony. They only put in useful idiots, easily controllable, bribable, blackmailable cronies to run their criminal domestic terrorist organization inside of America. Here's the update.
Major breaking political news out of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim Walz will not seek re-election as governor, and what a fall from grace this has been for him. You might recall in the spring of 2023, he pushed through several progressive ideas to the state legislature that caught the attention of Barack Obama, who went to Twitter to give his endorsement for the programs, which eventually caught the attention of people like Kamala Harris, who chose him to be her running mate as the vice president. Introduced in Chicago at the convention in August of last year, a debate that was an absolute disaster with J.D. Vance at one point called himself a knucklehead. But after reportedly billions of dollars have been stolen from taxpayers, by way of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz says he will not seek a third term. What a remarkable 2 years in the national spotlight has been for him, Dana.
And Walz hit Trump in his announcement.
So how much credit goes to Nick Shirley? I mean, he was in the right place at the right time. And Walz obviously did this to himself, but my God. Did Nick Shirley do this? By the way, Nick Shirley walks around with security. He gets access to the CCOT. He's down in El Salvador at the Supermax prisons. He's being propped up by something. He's being funded by somebody somewhere. I don't know his whole story. And maybe that's the skeptic in me. Maybe that's my jealousy of people that are breaking through the matrix and succeeding. But, you know, I look at people with a large reach and I wonder how they're actually doing it. Do you have to become a part of the system to get access to the system, to thrive inside the system? And while it feels egalitarian and that there's a whole bunch of opportunity, really, it's still just a handful of people that are pre-selected and they're on the list where they're allowed to get their message across. And that sometimes feels impossible to break through to new audiences or grow. Once again, I ask you to share this show with your friends, invite a couple people over, share it on X, share it on Facebook, copy the link, say, hey, we get together and talk about the news. Please subscribe and join us. Follow us. Hit the podcast. I hope you're all subscribed to the podcast. But yeah, I was looking into Nick Shirley a little bit, and he's traveling with security anyway, and he's in all the right places, doing all the right things. I mean, that's a very well-funded endeavor. It's not impossible, but it does make you wonder how aligned he is with backing interests. So do we give a ton of credit to Nick Shirley? Question of the day. Rightfully so. It's time to tip our caps and give a little bit of credit, if not a ton of credit, to Nick Shirley for his role in taking out Tim Walz. Agree or disagree? It's time to give some flowers to Nick Shirley. Absolutely. Was it right place, right time? Was he? Who knows? I don't need to get into too much of that, but I just found it it's not super easy to get unfettered access to Supermax. And just the way he's fearlessly out there and he's got bodyguards and security around. It's like, well, where's all this funding coming from? Why is this guy the new it thing? Why were Woodward and Bernstein look, then this isn't about Nick Shirley. I don't know the guy. I've never met him. I got no beef with him particularly. Okay. I've watched him over the past year. Like, he seems to kind of always be in the right spot at the right time. Okay. And we were too at the conventions and hitting, you start to get a little bit familiar with the circuit. There's a lot of photojournalists. There's a lot of investigative reporters, man on the street. You'll go to these events and you'll see a lot of the same overlapping characters. But yeah, the whole experience of new media, it as much as you can trust the legitimacy of a pop-up protest against Trump. Oh, multi-city, look, they're having a no kings rally. Oh, look at this, it's so organic. And nothing's organic. Stop. These are actors. They're all doing their thing. But the type of access the no-name Nick Shirley was getting to the Supermax prison and getting this story and knocking it out like that and getting the reach and having it go viral. There's controlled opposition, there's preferred mouthpieces, authoritative sources. There's different ways to describe the same thing. So just sort of thinking about it. Anyway, yeah, Preston Bates says Tim Walz drops out of the 2026 re-election. We collected a scalp. Who's this guy? InfoWars. Oh, okay. Jordan Crowder says, is it starting to make sense yet? Trump and Maduro made a deal? What's this video? Let me play this.
So there were trucks that showed up on the 3rd.
This is President Trump posted this from the skiff about the 2020 election. This is the skiff reporting, videoed by NTD Live, shared by Trump.
And then the 4th, and then the 5th. And how long did that go on? How many days?
I wasn't there the whole last week, but I know
for as long as you can recall. How many days?
My last day was the 10th, and they were still coming in.
Trucks.
And they're coming from a company called Runback that does the high-speed scanning and
it's about Arizona
printing of duplications, and I think the military ballots. So now I'm getting out of my comfort level here talking about this. I don't know what they're doing, but those ballots were coming in from a high-speed scanning company called Runback that apparently you haven't heard of Runback?
No, I've heard of Runback,
Okay.
ma'am. But what I'm trying to figure out is whether they printed them or they scanned them, and if they scanned them off-site, to what purpose?
The skiff report says 2016 U.S. election, since 2016, U.S. elections have been using Runback, especially Maricopa County, Arizona. Runback prints ballots, mails out ballots, fills out ballots, counts ballots off-site with no oversight of election officials. That's a claim here. Witness claims she was there until the 10th, and they were still coming in and has no idea where the ballots originally even came in from in the first place. They say they need this off-site company that has no oversight, and they can make their own ballots because of how big the country is. And it just happened to need over 2.5 weeks after the election to count all the ballots? Or was this just how long it took to create a massive amount of fake ballots or run ballots through machines multiple times to beat Trump because of his massive landslide? Arizona finished counting votes 2.5 weeks after the election. Florida finished counting less than 2.5 hours after polls closed, despite having millions more votes to count and being the 3rd largest state in the country. Yeah, election fraud is massive. So that's all the text from the skiff shared by President Trump from this NTD Live video, which is a report on election integrity hearing about Arizona's legislature.
I can't tell you
Because wasn't that your job to scan them? Well, I big not your job, but
yeah. No, all the high-speed scanning happens at Runback. So those ballots go to Runback. As far as I know, there were no observers there. I don't know. I never got called to work at Runback. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, with all due respect, Mr. Cook, now we've opened up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah, and again,
So
I don't know
this-
enough about it to be the witness.
No,
of it.
that's
So, yeah.
fine. Your observation is useful here. So what you're telling me, I'm going to play this back to you a second. The scanning wasn't actually done on site at a Maricopa County structure. It was done someplace else.
Where they have very high-speed scanners, yeah. And-
Well,
yeah.
right now, I really don't care what the speed is.
Yeah.
I want to know, were they Dominion scanners? Or they
No,
were,
I don't think it has anything to do with Dominion.
So I'm trying to understand what was the purpose of scanning them in advance of them being tabulated on the Dominion equipment.
And remember how quickly Fox, the same Fox News, who ran out Chris Wallace to repeat the fine people hoax in the 2020 debate. Remember that, 2020. They put Biden versus Trump, and they had their mouthpiece try to frame President Trump calling Nazis fine people and neo-Nazis fine people and white supremacists fine people. He never said that, and Fox News was in on it. Remember, a couple years later, Fox News got rid of their number one voice, Tucker Carlson, and said they had to settle a lawsuit. I believe it was with Dominion. I reserve the right to be wrong on that. With someone, I think it was Dominion. Oh, because they made false election claims. How could they possibly know? Well, they claimed that they shared in a private thread that they didn't believe that what Trump was saying was true. And they had to hurry up and make it seem like if you question the legitimacy of off-site vote tabulation companies, machines, software, code, algorithms, data, internet connections, Wi-Fi connections, passwords, verification systems, proprietary software that we don't have the right to see. Well, if you criticize that, you're going to be in a heap of trouble there, bucko. So Fox News settled. I wonder if they ever paid that lawsuit. I don't know. And they got rid of their number one voice. And they made it toxic to even question the legitimacy of having some, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be Runback. It doesn't need to be Dominion. It doesn't need to be any particular company. This isn't an accusation against any one particular company, although they're referencing a few by name specifically because of their specific Arizona situation. Why would you outsource anything that crucial to anyone else? Why wouldn't you just keep the paper ballots in front of you? They're all watermarked. They're all stamped. You count 100, you get it vacuum sealed after a Republican and an independent and a Democrat all stamp off on it. And you put the boxes, you vacuum seal it with the code, and you put it under 24/7 surveillance in a gymnasium locker room. And it's just under surveillance. Like, this is not complicated. But that's not what was done. All these complicated, unverifiable measures. And they flipped hard. Trump was on his way to just blowing out his re-election in 2020. 5 or 6 states magically paused counting. And then took as much time as was needed to barely eke out a victory for the other team. I'm old enough to remember that. We covered that live. We did a live stream. Didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now.
They were duplications, the ballots that wouldn't read through the tabulation machines. They were ballots that came in from military and overseas.
And anything military overseas needs to be handled in advance. That needs to be handled prior. There needs to be a cutoff. The deadline to register is a month before the thing. You get them 2 weeks before. Like, those should all be counted. This whole waiting for overseas shit. Come on. This is 2026. Figure it out.
But there were more ballots than that. So I don't know where the rest of them were coming from because they kept bringing trays of them in. So I don't know where they were coming from. That's a question for the county employees to explain to you where those ballots came from.
That's all to say. Jordan Crowder here.
So there were trucks that showed up on the 3rd.
Let's see. Host of the Conscious Observers podcast. Suggesting that to him it makes sense that Trump and Maduro made a deal. Maduro allows himself to be captured, spills the beans on how Venezuela helped the U.S. Democrats steal 2020 election. Then Trump will pardon him and his wife will go after the Democrats. 2026 will be lit, y'all. So keep your eyes peeled if that turns out that way. This guy might have summed it up perfectly. I'll let you listen, then I'll translate.
Y le pido a todos que tengan fe, no sé dónde ir a salir, pero le pido a todos que tengan fe, que no se dejen llenar la cabeza de que los gringos solo quieren el petróleo, y los gringos solo quieren sus riquezas. O sea, y a esas personas les pregunto, ¿qué creen ellos que querían los rusos y los chinos durante tanto tiempo? ¿La receta de la arepa? Imposible.
You want the recipe for arepas? Reverend Jordan Wells said this Venezuelan dropped the ultimate mic on It's All About Oil crowd. On the It's All About Oil crowd. To those screaming the U.S. only wants our oil, I got a question. What do you think Russia and China were doing here? The secret recipe for arepas? And even if oil plays a role, this is his context now, not the commenter. And even if oil plays a role, Venezuelans would gladly trade every drop for real freedom and democracy after decades of starvation, oppression, and tyranny under Maduro. But privileged, out-of-touch Americans romanticizing socialism from their safe suburbs will never get it because they don't have to live the nightmare. The people suffered, and now they're celebrating liberation worldwide. Priorities straight. Freedom is greater than oil excuses. We said good riddance here in our sports. We tagged the Unhappy Hour _ TNAM Football and Brown's Family Doc, some of our other X accounts, saying that this dude wasted prime Ward, Chubb, Mayfield, and Garrett, and it's criminal. Kevin's unwillingness or inability to work with Baker Mayfield drove the Browns to mortgage the farm on Deshaun Watson, who Stefanski also couldn't get the most out of. Need a repeat of GM Andrew Berry's last draft to fix this. So Kevin Stefanski, the 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, is out after going 45-56 in 6 seasons with Cleveland. John Gruden, you heard it here first. I think John Gruden will be the new coach. I was asking about how much credit does Nick Shirley get, and Marion says a bunch of credit to Nick for that, in my humble opinion. David says, yeah, so how is Kamala connected to Tim Walz? Yeah, exactly. Oh, the criminality. Remember, Kamala was the border czar. Say no more. A useful idiot working on the overthrow of the nation. Yeah, Kamala didn't know about Walz. Of course she did, but she didn't know what was going on. She appeared to be drunk by noon, but that's okay. I'll be president someday. That was a lyric from Sublime. Lake Leon says, question of the day, I agree, but that could have been you or I or anybody else that doing what Nick Shirley did. Like most normal people, though, we have jobs. It's true. Hello, Kenneth. The ballots. Yes. Not ballets, ballots. Ballots. Yeah, why would you send ballots to others and then have someone else count? Like, that's it. Count them in person. Have one day, one vote, show up, vote. It's super easy. Like this whole millions and millions and millions of votes being mailed in. Get out of here. You don't put checks in the mail. You don't put cash in the mail for the same reason. You show up in person if it's important. David says Gruden would be fantastic for the Browns. Yeah. I wonder if we're going to be able to keep Jim Schwartz. I wonder if he's going to have a chance, the defensive coordinator, to interview for that job. I hope so. Anyway, take a look here. Jenny Beth Martin says HSI, which is a branch of ICE, is on the ground in Minneapolis conducting an investigation into child care fraud from a few days ago. The Trump admin is acting swiftly. We're about to see unprecedented arrests and deportations.
Are there any subcontractors or anything you guys deal with? Say like other businesses that you partner with that you use for a service of any kind, maybe transportation or anything like that? No, we provide usually parents and they come like this.
All right. All right, let's check in with Senator Bernie Moreno. This was shared by Strictly Speaking Unfiltered with Bob France. I think we saw John over in that chat room. Thanks for jumping over into that program earlier, Strictly Speaking Unfiltered with Bob France. I've been pseudo-producing that show, helping get Bob trained up on the engineering and the production of how to use the Rumble and the Restream and connecting and just all of it. It's a lot. And so I've been serving as a pseudo-producer, pseudo-engineer, pseudo-whatever over there. But Bob had Senator Bernie Moreno from Ohio on his program last week. And he shared this from his X account today. Let me read it. President Trump today changed the course of Latin America for a generation, says Bernie Moreno. What is he, senator from Ohio? Republican U.S. Senator from Ohio. President Trump today changed the course of Latin America for a generation by acting in America's self-defense and self-interest to end the narco-terror organization run by Nicolas Maduro. He eliminated an obvious, clear, and present danger to our nation. Unlike the inept and incompetent Biden administration, who should have acted when Maduro illegally retained power in 2023, President Trump has shown the world that he will defend and protect American lives. Maduro and his band of narco-terrorists were directly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans, threatened our national security, and unleashed a historic invasion of our country by criminals. Venezuela served as an air, land, and maritime corridor for transporting deadly poison to the United States with the goal of killing American citizens. Maduro protected Colombia's narco-terrorists. Let them, and anyone in this hemisphere, be on notice that they are next if they aim to harm our nation. To the great and now free people of Venezuela, President Trump seeks peace, and America does not wish conflict or war with your nation. It is up to you now to determine your own future and chart a path for prosperity that had seemed so elusive. America stands ready to be a partner and a friend. May God bless America, and God bless President Trump. And of course, that was the show from earlier. If you want to check it out, Strictly Speaking with Bob France. Elon posted this, a message from a white liberal, or message to a white liberal about Venezuela.
States military into Venezuela last night to kidnap Maduro and his wife to somewhere. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're alive. And now Trump has announced that the U.S. is going to temporarily.
Please note the bull ring in the nose. It's a telltale sign. Please note the red hair. That's a telltale sign that someone like this would suddenly become a Venezuela expert and tell the rest of us how we're supposed to feel about it.
Take over control and operations of Venezuela.
White liberals in America are complaining about Nicolas Maduro, while Venezolanos in Venezuela are out celebrating that their dictator is gone. If this doesn't tell you how evil and disturbed white liberals in America are, I don't know what will. They're willing to allow an entire country to be exploited as long as it fits their political agenda and goes against Trump. Think about that. Nicolas Maduro publicly rigged elections, killed his own people, had actual re-education camps, made anybody who opposed him disappear. And this is who they're defending now. Believe me, I was worried when Trump said that the United States would oversee the transition of power in Venezuela. But here's a reality that no one wants to admit. Maduro didn't just destroy Venezuela. He destroyed the entire system of checks and balances. He replaced the courts, institutions, everything with loyalists. This isn't one bad leader. This is a government gutted from within. Because of this, if we don't step in, the people who committed the corruption will be the exact same ones choosing who investigates it. The power is not going to return to the people. It'll just rotate to another loyalist from the same corrupt machine. But when these people say stay out, they're not saying stay out because it benefits Venezuelans or they care about what happens to them, because clearly Maduro was the worst thing that could have happened to him. Maduro was getting rich while starving his own people. A credible transition isn't about America controlling Venezuela. It's about preventing a total collapse. It's about less violence, fewer mass migrations, and giving Venezolanos a chance to stay in the country they love instead of being forced to flee from it. Scrutinize everything. Go ahead. Absolutely. I encourage it. But pretending that walking away fixes anything, that's how failed states stay failed states.
All right.
States military into Venezuela.
And this is our show from over the weekend. Maduro feels the warmth of collectivism as Venezuela's narco-terrorist in chief is captured during a U.S. night raid. Yeah, that was the program I looked on YouTube. Let me refresh here. It's under review to determine whether it's suitable for most advertisers. That's what I face with the new American media trying to work on YouTube. So please consider the other ways to support the new American media: Rumble rants, Rumble subscriptions, Patreon, as well as Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal donations. We rely on that. Yeah, it was just weird to look and find that YouTube took the monetization of that show away. Breaking news, we covered the news, and they said you're not allowed to earn a living today. It's so exhausting. But we keep pushing. The Odysee letter says the Venezuela plot thickens. While Venezuela holds 303 billion barrels of oil reserves, much of this is in heavy crude oil. Texas and Louisiana also happen to have 6 of the largest heavy crude oil refineries in the world. What does this mean? They put a whole thread together about how we're probably going to start getting all that super heavy stuff and converting it into useful stuff. Libs of TikTok shows us Mamdani's newly appointed tenant advocate director thinks home ownership and private property is white supremacy. Sia Weaver said allegedly in 2019, private property, including any kind of especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy masquerading as wealth-building public policy. Is that a woman? What type of lunatic would say something like that? No, it's financial literacy. It's financial supremacy over the banksters. Oh, that Mamdani thing is such a mess. Gaina Fauci here posted a side-by-side of Maduro and Biden and says both of these men stole elections. One has been detained. Which one? And will the other one be detained anytime soon? And Wokeness says, say her name, Zoe Welsh, 57. She was K'd in her home in Raleigh, North Carolina by this guy, Ryan Camacho, a felon with over 20 prior arrests. 1 month ago, he was ruled unfit for trial. So instead of keeping him behind bars in a cage where he belongs, they let him out and he ended her. That is awful. I wanted to share most of the action with you because I shared Rubio talking with Stephanopoulos, Snuffleupagus, but this one is with Margaret Brennan. It's so duplicitous because out of one side of her mouth, she's like, well, you can't go into Venezuela and do that. And how could you do that? And why would you do that? And what are you doing with that? And then out of the other side of her mouth, she's like, well, there's these other things. Why didn't you do all these other things too? It just reminds me of how duplicitous, just how deceptive, how intentionally obtuse the deep state mouthpieces. The Democrats, they'll bash people who move into an urban area and they try to make it better. They say, that's gentrification. You're making it too nice. You're doing bad things by like cleaning things up, picking up trash and painting and making your area look nice. You go, what's bad about that? Well, see, you're displacing the current people and like they live in you have no right and they're making it bad. And it still doesn't really make sense what gentrification is. Except as the lady who yelled at me, this is the ghetto, Brian. You see videos of why people will take firearms and they'll shoot out their window. And they'll say, this is how we keep the rent low. You keep the crime stats up so people don't want to move there and make it nice. Otherwise, it gets nice and you can't afford to be in your own spot. So if you move into an urban area, you're accused of being mean. You're doing bad things like gentrification. But if you're from an urban area and you don't like the crime and you don't like the graffiti and you don't like the trash and you don't like the pollution and you don't like the taxes and you don't like the prices and you don't like the policies and you move away, you're accused of white flight. So, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. This Margaret Brennan is like, why would you even go in there? Like, what business do you have? You can't just go in there. Also, there's like 4 other things. Why wouldn't you do all these other things? They hit you from both sides. It just is what it is. It's par for the course. And Rubio met it head on here.
Number one, most of the experts that people have on top.
Meet the press.
I watch these experts, and it's clown hour. Okay, these are people that have focused their entire career on the Middle East or some other part of the world because that's where all the action was. Very few of them know anything about Venezuela or the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela looks nothing like Libya. It looks nothing like Iraq. It looks nothing like Afghanistan. It looks nothing like the Middle East other than the Iranian agents that are running through there plotting against America. Okay? These are Western countries with long traditions among their at a people-to-people and cultural level and ties to the United States. So there's nothing like that. So I think people need to stop ascribing the apples and oranges here, the apples of the Middle East to the oranges of the Western Hemisphere.
But do you...
Number two, this is about the national interest of the United States. And what...
Sorry, this isn't Margaret Brennan. It's this other lady.
What I'm confident of is...
So maybe this isn't the video I was thinking of. Sorry.
We are in a safer and better place because we're taking it seriously. The alternative would have been to leave Maduro there as an indicted drug trafficker, illegitimate president, running the country, open invitation for all of our adversaries to do whatever they want against the United States from Venezuela. That was not going to continue. The alternative would have been to allow a drug trafficker to continue to use national territory and elements of nation-state power to further drug trafficking organizations. Read the indictment. This guy used the levers of their security apparatus not to arrest drug traffickers, but to cooperate and facilitate the trafficking of drugs for the purpose of getting them into the United States. And that's going to stop.
All right, so he's making his case. Yeah, that was not exactly the video that I thought. It was the Brennan one. Zoran Mamdani, according to Amuse, downgrades the NYPD commissioner, ending a direct mayoral briefing that existed since 9/11. Policing is now treated like sanitation. The mayor no longer believes Islamic terror represents a threat to the city and sees no need for daily intelligence briefings. After 9/11, New York's mayors kept the NYPD commissioner in a direct daily intelligence loop. That model is now ending. Mamdani has removed the commissioner, Jessica Tisch, the direct line to his office, relegating police leadership to the same access level as garbage collection. The shift weakens situational awareness at the top and reflects a belief that Islamic terror threats no longer require mayoral focus. Wow. Elon posts a picture and says, I had a lovely dinner last night with President Trump and First Lady Trump. 2026 is going to be amazing. Scott Adams, continued prayers of strength and support and miracles, if it be your will, to help him heal or help him stay comfortable until he's out of time. Scott's still broadcasting. One of the best shows out there. Go check out Coffee with Scott Adams. But he talks about Trump using a linguistic kill shot.
So he's talking about Colombian President Petro, who also has some kind of cartel connections. And he says, quote, he has cocaine mills, talking about the president of Colombia. He has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. And then he says, and here's the kill shot, he says they're sending it to the United States, so he does have to wash his ass. I tell you often that Trump is so good with swearing.
He drops it and he makes you, it's like Mitch Hedberg has a joke. He goes, yeah, I put on some Carmex. I had a cold sore, so I put on some Carmex. I don't know if it works, but it will make the cold sore shiny and more noticeable. When Trump drops crude language, it's like putting Carmex on it. It highlights it. It makes it shiny and more noticeable. It's a highlighter pen to the topic he's talking about.
He only uses it judiciously, but when he does, it really makes you focus on that thing he said. So instead of saying a boring thing like, yes, I hope he cooperates in the future, he says he has to wash his ass. As soon as you throw ass in the sentence, people pay attention. And I imagine that the Colombian president is practicing his run to his safe room. Yeah, they probably got a stopwatch. They're like, all right, President of Colombia, can you make it to the safe room in 37 seconds? Because unfortunately, that's all the time you're going to have. And Maduro, I guess, almost made it, but he didn't.
Oh.
Run to his safe room.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me listen to that last part one more time.
As soon as you throw ass in the sentence, people pay attention. And I imagine that the Colombian president is practicing his run to his safe room. Yeah, they probably got a stopwatch. They're like, all right, President of Colombia, can you make it to the safe room in 37 seconds? Because unfortunately, that's all the time you're going to have. And Maduro, I guess, almost made it, but he didn't.
Oh, so he almost made it to a safe room. I didn't hear that part. So that is super interesting. By the way, the Don-Roe Doctrine. Let me just tell you about the Monroe Doctrine. It's a foundational, this is according to Grok, so it might hallucinate. Take it for what it is. The Monroe Doctrine is a foundational principle of U.S. foreign policy, first articulated by President James Monroe in his 7th annual message to Congress, December 2, 1823. That's a long time ago. By the way, happy 250th birthday, America. Core principles, it declared that the Western Hemisphere, the Americas, was closer to further European colonization. I'm sorry, it was closed. Let me repeat that. The Western Hemisphere, the Americas, was closed to further European colonization. They're done. Any attempt by European powers to interfere in the affairs of independent nations in the Americas or to establish new colonies or puppet governments there would be viewed as a hostile act against the United States. So what happens when China, when Russia, when Iran, pick your paper tiger, pick your shadow regime, running around and taking over Venezuela, taking over Cuba, taking over. I mean, that Bay of Pigs, that Cuban Missile Crisis almost led to a hot nuclear war. Don't you know? Core principles of the Monroe Doctrine. In reciprocity, the United States would not interfere in existing European colonies or in European wars and internal affairs. Yeah, I'll finish the context. This is Let me share this tab instead. This is good context here. In fact, this might be about where I'm going to wrap this up for today. I loved the terminology, the Don-Roe Doctrine, trying to reclaim sovereignty from all of the puppet regimes. America having come off of a puppet regime in the last term. We feel the effects of it still. We're trying to dig out of it. With Joe Biden. Give me a break. Key context and purpose of the Monroe Doctrine. This doctrine responded to concerns that European powers such as Russia, Spain, or the Holy Alliance of Austria, Prussia, and Russia might attempt to recolonize newly independent Latin American countries after their revolutions against Spanish and Portuguese rule, or expand influence in the hemisphere. Drafted largely by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, it aimed to assert a separate spheres policy. The New World, Republican and independent, versus the Old World, monarchical and interventionist. Key excerpt from the Monroe's address. The American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintain, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. We should consider any attempt on their part to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety. Historical significance. Initially, the doctrine had limited immediate enforcement power. The U.S. relied indirectly on British naval support, and European powers largely ignored it at first. Over time, however, it became a cornerstone of U.S. policy invoked to justify American influence in the hemisphere. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, interpretations expanded, most notably with the Roosevelt Corollary, 1904, which claimed a U.S. right to intervene in Latin America to prevent European involvement, leading to multiple U.S. military actions. It's been referenced in events like the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962, and continues to influence discussions on hemispheric relations, though often criticized as a tool of U.S. imperialism. That's your Don-Roe Doctrine. Reestablishing dominance in the hemisphere. I mean, we've watched this country broken to pieces and sold off to the highest bidder, it seems. And that does appear to be changing. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to learn more about it in the coming days. So thank you for being here today. We'll unpack the news. Tomorrow, we're aiming at the regular noon, I think. Stay tuned. I don't know. I'll try to alert you as it becomes necessary. For time changes. Thank you for jumping in a little early today. We're wrapping up by the time we usually start by. So thanks for adapting your schedules and jumping in. We always appreciate that. So please hit like, subscribe. We want to double the reach of this show. Tell your friends. Invite your family. Tell your neighbors. Text it. Direct message it on Facebook. Put it out on X. Share the show. And of course, hit like, hit subscribe, thumbs up. Your comments, questions, and jokes are always fantastic. As well as our regular show tomorrow, I think we're going to do noon. We're going to have our 3 o'clock show, Strictly Football, covering the final week of the season. Myles Garrett's single season all-time sack record for the Browns. Wearing this hat to commemorate the end of another miserable season. But the cornerstone of 2 straight wins and a new head coach coming in. And a preview of the upcoming playoff season. All right. Signing out. On behalf of everybody out there in the TNAM universe, thank you for coming today. We appreciate you. We love you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody. Peace.
guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.